We've now reached the end of the material in our course on tonal harmony. We've discussed many harmonic situations, trying to emphasize how they're perceived and also implications for performers. This is a course about doing harmony, not just analyzing it. While there are varying points of view concerning harmonic analysis, our focus here has been on how knowledge of harmony can be applied to real music. And since we've oriented our explanations in terms of perception, many of these principles go beyond the classical style. Efficient voice leading, solid bass lines, differences in harmonic tension, all these things are just as much part of other harmonic languages because they're based on how we perceive music rather than on one particular style. To conclude, we'll underline just a few key notions that lie behind all of our work here. First, voice leading. As its name indicates, this is about how one note leads to the next. It's based largely on vocal style, and it concerns what's easy to sing and why. Of course, there are vocal works with more complex lines, but as they distance themselves from basic voice leading, they become harder to sing. So if you have to write a piece for amateur choir, the basic rules of voice leading are fundamental. It might seem that the kind of voice leading emphasized here is pretty boring, and that's often the case, but it's easy to forget that there's a common application for this, the secondary parts in large ensembles. Part of orchestration is knowing what will stand out as foreground and what will be perceived as background. Apart from the fact that writing 50-part counterpoint for an orchestra is impractical, even if it were possible, it wouldn't take into account human perception, which is all about hierarchy. Background parts shouldn't attract attention. Voice leading is also related to how we hear. As Albert Bregman discusses in his book Auditory Scene Analysis, we tend to hear notes in the same register as coming from the same source. So the stream created by a line that does not leap around too much will be perceived as unified. This is important both for homophonic textures and contrapuntal textures, and how they'll be perceived. The point here is not that leaps are bad, but that they're perceived in a different way. If composers care about musical coherence, this has to be kept in mind.
Another essential goal in studying harmony is to be able to write convincing bass lines. The counterpoint between outer parts is a huge factor in musical interest and direction. Without it, it's impossible to create real richness of texture and directed harmonic movement. The reason is simple. The outer parts are normally the most salient to the listener, so if they don't do their job, the composer is like a runner trying to compete with one foot in a cast. The issue of counterpoint brings up another essential point, often ignored in harmony teaching. As harmony gets richer, it often depends on specific voice leading, with the active tones in particular. Also, the more harmonic possibilities there are, the more contrapuntal possibilities emerge. Similarly, it's impossible to do advanced counterpoint without rich harmony. The point here is that the separation between harmony and counterpoint is pedagogical. You can't begin work on everything at the same time, but the more you advance in studying these disciplines, the more they unite. We don't have two brains, one for counterpoint and one for harmony. At the end of the day, they're both part of the musical mind. Orchestration is also part of harmony. Basic work in harmony is intended for blended ensembles like a mixed choir, but if one of the lines is set for a very contrasting timbre, it could stand out more and require more contrapuntal treatment. One last point. Ultimately, harmony can't be separated from musical form. Harmonic direction is a huge part of what keeps people interested in the music. Degrees of harmonic tension and contrast are fundamental to composing, and getting them right is a big part of the craft of harmony. A Neapolitan sixth chord might be perfect at one point, say the climax of Bach's Passacaglia and Fugue, but would sound totally wrong elsewhere. At this point, students should go back and again watch our first two lessons on basic principles. They are absolutely fundamental to really understanding harmony in depth. In the coming months, we'll be adding exercises to these lessons.